Welcome back, dear listeners, to AIBiz, where we talk shop with the builders, the operators, the founders who are crazy enough to scale companies in a world that moves at AI speed. And today we are hitting a topic entrepreneurs whisper about but really unpack openly, which is how the hell do you run a high performance business while being a committed husband and father? Because let's be real, like scaling a company is definitely hard. Raising a family is harder. But doing both at the same time, that's a masterclass, I would say. I mean, no one teaches it, and the cost of getting it wrong can be brutal as well. So, hey, dear listeners, to help us break it down, we have got a lovely guest. Please welcome Matthew Peck. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about this subject, as it's been one that I've talked about a lot lately with some different groups of people I've been talking with. So excited to dive into it.
Amazing, amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I'll quickly love to introduce you to Matthew. So, Matthew is a founder who has been building companies since he was 18 years old. And he's launched marketing firms, e commerce brands, digital products engines, performance consultancies, and now runs Boardroom Capital, a platform that brings institutional grade trading strategies to the entrepreneurs who want their money working as hard as they do. So he isn't just a kind of business builder, but he's a systems guy, a data backed decision maker, a strategist who believes your life shouldn't collapse under the weight of your ambition. And and he's here to talk about the real intersection of marriage, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, sacrifice, automation, and the discipline it takes to build businesses without burning your family down in the process. So I'll not take much of your time. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited to dive into this.
Amazing. So Matthew, as I was mentioning in the beginning, you have built the companies for the 2 decades, and so when do you first realize that building a business and the building a family requires two completely different operating systems? I mean, what do you say?
So the interesting thing about the companies I've started is, I started my first one at 18. I had just graduated high school, and it was a martial arts school, which was really cool, right? Like I was really good back then at kicking and punching people and not getting kicked and punched as much.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting business because I didn't go to college. I graduated straight out of high school, but running the business at 18 is vastly different than the one I'm running now. Not just because of what they are, it's
Mm.
because I believe that in that first adventure I had, it was just me. The only person who would suffer at failure would be myself. My level and my appetite for risk and doing things different, it was tremendous because again, it was just me. The worst thing that happens, I gotta, budget down and, eat ramen for a month and a half, and that's fine, right? It's no big deal. It's just me that had to worry about it. But the biggest difference is as I grew up and grew into other businesses and so forth, and then, I got married and I have kids, is it's no longer about me. The whole reason I run the companies I do and the
Mm.
things that I operate with isn't even for me. It's for my family and for my kids. I've always joked the last 5 years have been building a legacy project because that's how long it's taken to get Boardroom Capital off the ground.
Mm.
But it, at the same time, I believe I am risky, but it's a controlled risk because it's not just about me. I believe entrepreneurs so many times struggle with the fact that they think that it has to be about them and that if they fail, then,
Mm.
everyone else suffers, but I've really had to learn how to disassociate that if the business hits a bump, it doesn't mean I personally hit a bump.
Mm.
It's just business as is. So it's been vastly different between my first company and this company now because the risk is different, but I believe I've grown enough to realize that it's not about me. And it's about working with my spouse and even my kids and having them understand like, hey, when dad's got these calls, like I need you guys to do these types of things because they're super important. And we operate, it's weird. We operate a lot like a company within the household. Meetings happen and people have to understand their place and their weight they have to pull and so forth. But It's definitely been an interesting segmentation of back when I was 18 versus now that I'm 40.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. And like what were the early mistakes? I mean, the ones you look back on and think, yeah, that wasn't sustainable.
Man, we could write a book on this topic. Um,
Yeah.
well, the thing about it, and I've always said this when I talk to people, is that I never wish I had done things, or I never wish I had ended up differently than I am now. A lot of times I hear people say, "Oh, I wish I'd done this differently, and this would have been changed and stuff." Well, I love the life I live now,
Yeah.
and I do wish I had done things differently, just because of the way they happened.
Mm.
But I do not wish that the results would have been different because I truly like where I'm at now. But, in the beginning of it, when I was running my first company, I had no real business experience or financial literacy in how to run a business.
Mm.
Right? I believe a lot of people who, and this is not a dig at anyone, but I believe people who get degrees and so forth like that are really taught how to, run a business with, budgets and so forth. I understand that concept. But when you're an entrepreneur and you're bootstrapping this, no one tells you how to handle the situations that come up, like, revenue's down and you got these bills to pay. How do you pick which ones to pay? And how do you pick which ones you gotta do things with? Right? Like, no one tells you how to handle those bumps, and there's no book for that. There's no degree. That is the school of hard knocks. And really what came into play was, I had situations in the past where it was, as a martial arts school, we had some great months and we had some down months. Summertime was rough for us. And, you gotta really change the way that you operate your business into a lean structure, because if not, just the, absorbent vampire costs, as we call them, will just eat everything that you have. And I learned that from my first companies, and in these companies, I look for those costs, and it's weird because people can say, "Oh, it's a super small amount, it doesn't matter," but every penny, it matters, and every little small amount matters. And I believe that truly for me, not the mistakes, but the learning curve was understanding how to financially run a business. Because you can have great ideas, but if you don't have the funds or the plan to get the funds, then you're gonna struggle to do that. And it just
Mm.
takes one small pebble to really throw that whole train off the track.
Yep, exactly. And absolutely, like a lot of founders treat their families like startups, but and also, I mean, the families don't respond to KPIs the same way employees do. So that's true. So, s- so and the myth of that balance. I mean, people talk about work-life balance like it's a kind of spreadsheet. So, in your experience, is balance even a real thing, or what do you think? I mean, is it more than about kind of intelligent prioritization and all something crazy?
I I think whenever you work at a company, work-life balance is a thing.
Yeah.
When you own a company, it doesn't exist. You have work and you have life and they coexist, but it's not a balance, right? So if we look at Boardroom Capital, the entire reason I started the company is because it's AI-based trading in foreign exchange markets, and I love trading. I'm an avid day trader, and I believe this is a skill set that everyone should learn, especially when you're trying to generate revenue from nothing, because it's an equal playing field. So I say that because the whole reason created the company is because I like trading, but I didn't have time to sit on the charts.
Yeah.
So I wanted a way to automate the process, right? But this comes with a balance of, you and I were talking at the beginning, but I've got, people I work with that are in the UK on different time zones. They're in California, different time zones, Australia, different time zones. And I have to sometimes say, "Hey, baby, I can't put you to bed tonight. Daddy's got a work call," and it's 8:30 at night. And granted, kids don't quite understand that. My older kids do because they get it, daddy go to work. Um, but I don't think it's a balance as much as a coexisting and just finding out, what can I delegate to someone else to free up more of my time versus I don't have to do everything. And I think as an entrepreneur, understanding you don't have to do everything, you can be in control without having to do it is really what saves your ability to have a true family life along the lines of it. But I'm not someone who says I'm going on vacation, you can't reach me for a week. I mean, I run a company, that just doesn't exist. Um, it just means I may not respond back as fast, but good working relationships with people, that typically is not an issue.
Yeah, exactly. So, what signals tell you like when your priorities have slid too far into the business and you need to recalibrate?
Yeah, no. So, having good people in the company makes a difference
Oh.
because, I give you a good example. I was working with another company, part of the performance coaching, and part of it was I was a general manager of the company while, intern while we were hiring out the right staff. And one of the people I actually hired was my brother. I didn't hire him, but it was my brother because he really good at what he does. And we sat down one day. He goes, "Dude," he said, "You're a great boss." He's like, "But you are not made for this." And, one of the funny things about it was he was right, and it took a strong person, which I try to surround myself with, to tell the guy who is in charge, like, "Hey, this isn't the right things. Like, you can't do that." And my household runs ironically the same way. My wife will tell me like, "Hey, we gotta change some of the priorities for this because this is what we got going on." Um, and I've always had to learn not to take things personally because I think, as entrepreneurs, because we wanna be right a lot of times, we
Mm.
we typically are not the best when it comes to people giving us, hard truths. We get very defensive very easily, which is a natural defense. It's self-preservation. But in understanding that when someone gives you a corrective thought or they tell you something, it's not personal, it's meant to help you. And that's a hard pill to swallow for some folks, and I'll be the first to admit I was never great at it. But I had to understand that when someone was giving me feedback, it was
Mm.
supposed to be for my better good and not to take it personally. It was just their feedback based on what they saw. So I strongly believe surrounding yourself with people who don't mind telling you the hard truths.
Mm. Got it. Got it. So, if a founder is listening right now, only implemented one system to reclaim their kind of weekends or evenings, um, what should it be?
Time management. I know it seems weird because it's not technically a system, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs are really good about scheduling their days, but forgetting about their evenings and their personal things they have to do too. Everything our household does runs on a calendar. My wife makes where everyone's appointments, everyone's softball practice, gymnastics, everything's on the calendar. And so the perk side of that is that if I need to book a call, I know what's going on within the household to do that. If something doesn't get put on the calendar, if something doesn't get changed, it absolutely throws us off the rails. A good instance is my son just started working. I mean, he doesn't have his license yet, so he needs to be taken to work. And I explained to him, I was like, if your work schedule changes and you don't update the calendar, you may not have a ride to work. I was like, because I base everything I do around this calendar.
Hmm.
And, it's a small system that makes a huge difference in our life. As I said, if something doesn't get put on the calendar, it doesn't get changed, it absolutely throws off everything that we're doing. So I truly believe that in understanding the time management factor, but it also allows you to prioritize things. And for instance, if my daughter has a softball game and
Okay.
someone says, "Hey, can I book a call during this time?" I can make the decision to say, "No, I can't do that time." It's not personal. It's just I've got something else I want to do that I feel is more important, which is, go watch my daughter play softball. And so by understanding that small nuance of you can say no to meetings, it absolutely makes a huge difference. And you don't ever have to explain your reason why. I think that's one thing that we feel a lot is that we'll say no to something and we'll go, "No, I can't because of X." You don't actually owe anyone a real explanation outside your spouse. If someone says I need to book a meeting this time and I'm not available, I'm not available. My reason for it is not relevant.
Boardroom capital was born from the big question like, I have worked my whole life to get here. Now, what do I do with it? So, how does the same question show up for the founders who are also parents?
So Boardroom Capital has been a love project. And what I mean by that is like my first company, I was a martial artist by nature. It's what I did. It's what I knew how to do. And I swore I would own a martial arts school for the rest of my life. 10 years later, I sold it. And Boardroom Capital gave me something that I wanted a lot of, which is a steady revenue stream. But it gave me something that was even more valuable. It gave me the time back that I really, really wanted. So, we always talk about passive income and And not that this is always great because there's, great risks often in trading, but whenever we, set these programs up, they run 24/7 if they're crypto, or if they run on commodities or, Forex, they run during the market open, and I don't have to think about it. So I'm able to really live my life and run my company without having to think about what's going on in the markets. So for me, it was a passion project because I saw an opportunity to create real change in my life and give me both what I really wanted, which was more revenue, but also give me back more time to do more things with my family.
Mm, true. And what advice do you give to the high kind of earners who want to build something that outlives hustle culture?
So, so hustle culture is always a topic in some of the groups I work with. And it's always funny because I always made a joke and I put this as my tagline actually. It was
Right.
and I was hustling before it was a hashtag
Hmm.
because I was. I mean, I started my first company in 2003. I was willing to do the work, do the grit, and so forth like that. And I don't believe also hustle culture is bad. I
Yeah.
think it's miscommunicated in that you hustle 24/7, but that's never true. It's never about how often you do something, it's about the amount of effort you put into it while you're doing it. And I relate this a lot of times in entrepreneurship with working out because you can have 40 meetings in a day and feel like you got nothing done because you were in meetings, but they weren't productive. Same thing when you work out, though. You can go spend 3 hours at the gym and get absolutely nothing accomplished because you simply didn't apply the right amount of effort into the activities you were doing that made the biggest difference in what it is. And so for me, it's always about you can hustle, but it has to be the right hustle. It has to be the right place at the right time with the right level of intensity.
Exactly. Hmm. Amazing. And if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium to connect?
So typically, a lot of folks connect me on Instagram. So one of my favorite things where I post a lot of videos, tips, tricks, things that are going on here and there. Not just about the company, but also just about lifestyle. It's probably the best way to connect with me on that. I'm also on X. Those are probably the two biggest ways. We do have a YouTube channel where we post videos too as well. But I'm always at for meeting new entrepreneurs and talking through things, and not like from a paid gig, right? I'm not looking for people to pay me to talk about entrepreneurship. I just enjoy finding people who are like-minded, who have questions or may have come across something that they haven't been able to solve yet. Because truly the world is built better with people that you associate with and that you can connect with on different levels.
Exactly. Totally love that. Yeah. Amazing. So, dear listeners, Matthew brought the kind of honesty every founder needs to hear because scaling a business is impressive, but scaling a life that includes love, marriage, fatherhood, that's the next level of leadership. So, if you are a business owner listening today, or maybe you'll be listening later, here's your reminder. Your company needs your strategy, your family needs your presence as well, and your future needs systems that protect both. So, check out Matthew's work at Boardroom Capital and dive deeper into how to build success that doesn't cost you the people you love the most. So, with this hope, this is your host, Avik. This is AIBiz. Build smart, live smarter, and never forget that your greatest ROI will always be at home. So, thank you so much.